The 2016 presidential election is in full swing with 3 candidates left, and I want to talk about a topic that we haven't really been touching on at all, especially not in the debates, and that is the video games and violence debate. Now, I've talked about this ad nauseum on the show in that I've been citing very many studies, long-term studies, international studies that would indicate that there is no link between violent video games and youth violence. Now, it seems maybe not like the topic of the day, but in the wake of Sandy Hook, for example, there were many politicians railing against violent video games as the cause to young people deciding to go shoot and kill and murder and kill themselves as well. I thought it was a very popular thing to do. I thought it was a very easy scapegoat to do, which is to pretty much follow in the path of the Hays Code and blame media for the actions that certain young people decide to take. There are many factors that may make someone want to turn to violence. However, studies indicate, very many studies indicate, that it is not video games doing this. It does seem like overall something that is easy for people to point to when they don't really understand it as a medium, as an art. And I do say an art in particular because I'm going to go through what each candidate's stance is on this issue. I do not have a lot. I'm going to try to do this as objectively as possible, saying which candidates are connected to what they've already said and done on this topic in particular, moving in descending order with who has the most to say, and that is Hillary Clinton. You may remember in 2005, she did start somewhat of a crusade against violent video games. So in 2005, she crafted the Family Entertainment Protection Act with Senator Joe Lieberman, and it did become one of the hallmark proposals in her Senate career. It included 5 major proposals in the bill, including a prohibition on selling games to minors, where retailers could be heavily fined for selling M or AO games to anyone under 17, an independent analysis of the ESRB's ratings system to figure out if it was actually accurate, authority to the FTC to investigate misleading game ratings, authority for consumers to register complaints with the FTC for misleading game ratings, and an audit of retailers, including possible secret shoppers, to see if underage kids can buy M or AO games in stores. There are many references to Hillary Clinton speaking in an official capacity on this matter, in which she asked specifically, are video games art? This might not sound like an important distinction, but art is protected by free speech, and this includes movies, television, books, and at the time video games were not included. Eventually this was taken to the Supreme Court and they were treated as art, and they do have those protections now. But she did lay it out pretty bare, which was, we need to treat video games the way we treat tobacco, alcohol, and pornography. Also going on to say, violent video games increase aggressive behavior as much as lead exposure decreases children's IQ scores, she said. So she's made herself pretty clear on the issue. However, I will note this is 2005, so those stances may have changed by now. This is not, again, something she's been talking about in her presidential campaign. Next, we have Bernie Sanders. There isn't a whole lot about where he stands on this issue. However, there is a 2012 video from Brunch with Bernie that talks a little bit about it.
I get appalled when I say that as a father of 4 and a grandfather of 7. If you look at these video games, if you look at some of the movies out there, some stuff that's on TV, there is so much gratuitous violence. And I can't help but think that that just desensitizes children and people in general to what it is about. You know, when you have films where people are spraying guns and killing people, it desensitizes you to death and killing. So I think there's a lot of work that has to be done. I think certainly guns are an important part of what has to be done. I think we have to make absolutely certain that guns, these very powerful weapons, do not fall into the hands of people who are mentally ill, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, that has been pointed to a lot recently on Reddit, particularly saying that Bernie Sanders is against violent video games. But if you do listen to the quote, he does say that video games and movies, perhaps media in general, desensitizes people to violence. I don't know if you could correlate that into saying they cause violence or lead you on a causative route to violence. I think perhaps that's a fair point. However, I mean, this also goes down in the groundwork of certain studies saying that it could lead to aggression, but aggression does not equal violence. it's kind of a so-so response, I would say. And lastly, Donald Trump. He hasn't talked very much about this except for on Twitter, where he likes to post all kinds of ramblings about how Diet Coke is for fat people, and then he drinks Diet Coke and insulting other celebrities at random. Here's the tweet. All right, this tweet comes from December 17th, 2012. It's the most recent of the three. Video game violence and glorification must be stopped. It is creating monsters. I don't know if you can count that as much as on the record as you would for Sanders or Clinton, because it's a tweet, but that is how he tends to send out his stances on topics. So I think that's the most definitive one if you had to judge the three of, where do we stand? Well, this is creating monsters. It does have a causative clause in it. So, I mean, I don't think anyone is really on the right side of this, to be honest, in terms of looking at the facts instead of saying, it could be pandering, it could be responding to a tragedy in a way that people will understand most simply. There's a lot to consider going into the primary decisions if you're in a state that is still yet to vote, which I am in, and it doesn't seem like this is really on anyone's brain right now, but it is an important thing to consider, especially if another tragedy were to happen in the next 4 years, which one can assume there's a chance that that will happen. Audience, what do you think about this debate, and who do you think stands the most on the right side? I'm leaning towards Sanders, which is more in the middle than really negative or positive. Let me know what you think below in the comments, and please like and subscribe for more.